And we are live.
Yes, welcome.
Welcome to the Sunday show.
Yeah.
The Pluralist Method.
The Pluralist Method. We're not
That's
calling
our
it
show.
the Sunday show.
We're not changing it up.
Yeah.
Yes, this is the Sunday edition of the Pluralist Method.
When we get a little more in depth, talk about more serious topics. I guess you could call it.
If you haven't figured that out by now.
Yes, we'd hope that our listeners would.
If you notice the quality decline when it comes to the Wednesday show, people really start to scratch their heads and wonder, are they just drunk or is they just lose half their brain cells on Wednesday.
Oh, it's pretty rough, but it happens. I wish we could say we were inebriated, but that is our normal state sometimes.
Yes, of course. Welcome to the show.
Mm-hmm.
I think we got a pretty good one today.
Yeah.
Before we start, I just wanted to, of course, tell everybody before I didn't forget this time.
Yeah, got it.
I forget. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Follow us on Twitter.
At Pluralist Method.
Sure to hit us up there.
Yep.
At Pluralist Method. And if you want to help us out, feel free to donate a tip or a little donation. And all those links are in the description below. Of course, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to ask them.
Yes.
And we will get to them at the end of the show. We will address them. Please, we encourage questions. If you have any, throw them out there.
Yes.
We'd love to see them.
We really do, and it's pretty awesome.
We actually
get these.
Yeah, I believe we were actually talking about perhaps doing another form of viewer interaction coming up.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that later. It's a surprise. You'll see when it happens. So today's topic is going to be election interference. Specifically, the question is, what can Western countries do to protect against election interference? And we wanted to pinpoint Western countries in particular because there is quite a bit of corruption and interference within more of your third or second world type countries.
Yes.
Just based on being developing countries is to be expected.
There are groups within the country domestically that have their own interests. And that's kind of a little more difficult to guard against.
Domestically or internationally.
Abroad,
You could have countries from outside trying to sway power over smaller countries too.
Via technology and money. And
we'll touch on those. I actually wanted, before we get into it on the overview, we'll knock through a few of the types of interference. And
actually, if you're okay with that, I know our listenership, actually, our audience probably knows the definition of election interference.
No, that's actually that is my first.
I did want to define it for our purposes.
That is my first overview topic. Yeah, that's my first overview point. So before we get into it, we'll do a brief overview, and the first is, what is election interference? Kind of define that.
So I actually I have my definition right here, and I've defined it as any action by an individual, group, or government aimed to influence the outcome of an election. That involves not only just the actual election, but the campaign, registering to vote.
The different methods, and we'll touch on those after.
Absolutely, and it's a very concise definition. I don't know if you have a different one.
Similar.
Yeah, but
stating a little differently.
I wanted to go over that just in case anyone wanted to know a little bit more about it, or wasn't really 100% sure all of what it entailed. So it's kind of broad, but it's meant to be broad.
Well, yeah, you want to start from a broad definition and then work your way down.
Absolutely.
So let's touch briefly on some of the methods of interference in particular. Did you want to hit some of those? I have a few that I've listed out here.
Yeah. The ones I had actually are campaign funding, so donations, things like dark money. A lot of
influencing political systems or figures,
either in elections or through bribes while they're already in office, could
this can be foreign or domestic.
Absolutely. Of course, there's also physical vote manipulation.
Direct manipulation of votes and voting machines.
Yes, trying to hack them and change the votes, the vote count to favor a particular candidate.
Or perhaps having the paper ballot trail be lost afterwards, or
absolutely
sort of manipulating those.
That's actually a
case
deal.
That's come up, yeah.
There's also voter suppression. So in many ways, you can. There are many ways you can do that. Primarily through some form of disinformation or misinformation.
Sure.
And the last one I had is and this one's a little more abstract, but I had inciting doubt in the integrity of the election system as a whole. I think that is a huge form of election interference that can ruin the belief in the concept of democracy as a whole. And that's a bit of a big thing.
And another one I actually had as well is pretty common lately is just general propaganda through forms of social media.
Oh, absolutely.
That can be another form. It seems not as direct, but it can be a pretty big factor as seen in the 2016 election.
Oh, absolutely.
Having kind of foreign powers with accounts that sort of splay messages of,
one thing.
Blatant propaganda towards one candidate or the other in a positive or negative light.
Yeah, I personally had that as a subset of the voter suppression.
Okay, sure.
But the misinformation propaganda.
Well, I guess I was thinking voter suppression more along the lines of where they might even do methods of gerrymandering or preventing.
Actually,
well, I don't know if that's necessarily. It's not necessarily interference. It kind of you get into voter suppression through removing types of identification used, or changing around the dates, or not dates necessarily, but what's it called? When you can voting beforehand. Absentee ballots.
Yeah.
I actually time frame for those. And
I actually do want to touch on gerrymandering. I had that under the category of inciting doubt in the integrity of the election cycle, and that is something that is absolutely legal in a lot of cases. The only law, according to the Supreme Court, about gerrymandering is you can't gerrymander based on race. That is the only limitation that is put in place.
Sure.
And it still happens, obviously, and that's a tragedy. But
I also before we move on as well, you probably have this in a listed under another category as well, but direct hacking within a certain political organization, like with the DNC hacked.
Absolutely, that's huge, and I do have that. I have that under the consequences and responses tab. I have a very odd little thing.
Sure,
yeah,
that's fine. I mean, we basically have similar kind of idea as far as
absolutely, and just so the audience knows, Jeremy and I usually don't.
It makes us sound like we're not communicating at all.
Yeah. There is there's kind of a reason for that, and it kind of incites a little more discussion between us.
And at the end, as you see, I like to pose certain questions that maybe he didn't think of.
Exactly.
Or things like of that sort, and not have him kind of have these pre-planned responses.
Yeah. So that kind of makes the things a little more interesting. So actually...
But before we get into it, I actually had a little quote I found when I was reading an article. I thought it was pretty nice. Based on just moving into the future. And it says, the opportunities to interfere in elections are just so rampant, reflecting on, particularly in social media. And the barriers to entry for foreign governments have been blown apart.
Oh.
I thought that was pretty nice. Moving into the future. It was, I think, director for foreign relations, or I don't remember the exact person. I had the link up here, but I won't dwell on that too long.
Yeah, it sounds like something the intelligence director would say.
I think it was like a nonprofit group that worked for sort of, I guess you could say, sovereignty and election and where am I going with this? Sort of democratic systems, I guess.
Okay, so that so they're actually a group kind of dedicated towards protecting elections.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. I really like that quote, and it's quite apt for this discussion. As we go along, I
Well,
guess.
did you want to go a little more into the overview as far as?
Yes, thank you. Because I did want to touch a little more on some of the subsets, like funding a campaign. There is quite a bit that can go into that. Actually, let me get over here. Okay, according to United States Code, I had to actually look into law because I didn't know what the rules were for foreign donations or foreign funding of campaigns.
Sure.
So according to U.S. Code 22.611, the definition section, they have a very odd definition of who a foreign actor is, and it includes anyone, any individual who is not a U.S. citizen and who does not have permanent residence in the United States. That's definition one, summarized. The second one would have been any organization or any corporation or group that is based in a foreign country.
Okay.
And they basically state that as long as they don't have their base, if they don't have their base of operations in the United States, they are a foreign actor.
Sure.
And the last was kind of a cleanup of a foreign actor. Basically, there are some odd rules on U.S. citizens living in other countries. And their status as to whether or not they're a foreign actor or not. The problem.
So would the concern there be that they could perhaps have been influenced by that foreign power into sort of kind of a turncoat style play?
Yes. Now there's also a foreign acting agent, I think it was, or a foreign principal agent, which is any individual who is representing the ideals or beliefs of another foreign actor,
okay,
or a foreign actor, and providing money towards a campaign. So I had a couple issues with this. First off, my biggest issue was that there are some individuals who do have permanent residence in the United States that may still be considered a foreign actor or holding a foreign belief. And while that would fall under the final definition of a foreign agent, or the agent of a foreign principal or foreign actor, it's very hard to kind of suss out and investigate whether or not they truly have that influence.
Sure.
So that's one issue I had. The other one, actually, and I'm losing my train of thought here. The other one I had was, the ability of foreign governments to basically send members to the United States to build a business or company, okay, in the effort to bypass the rule. If you are a United States-based company, mm-hmm, then you can give money to a politician during, sure, their campaign. Yeah. But if that business was started by foreign actors in the first place, there's a little bit more leeway. So there are workarounds within our current law that need to be sussed out and really
so kind of
thought about.
A foreign business of a sort could sort of, I guess, set up shop within the U.S. Mm-hmm. and sort of have a influence by being able to donate, or
yeah. Now the law is quite clear. Their base of operations, the base of operations has to be within the United States.
But I guess they could move their base of operations from that point.
Exactly. Okay. So the way I read the law, that's perfectly legitimate.
Sure. And you could, I mean, theoretically, you could just set up a fake sort of business.
Oh yeah. I just started an LLC, and now my base of operations is right here in the USA.
There you go.
And prop up whatever.
You can just funnel money through that.
Yeah. I mean, That's a horrible way to do it, and it's kind of despicable, but it probably happens.
I'm sure there's less effective ways you could influence a politician.
Yes. Actually, money is probably the best way to influence a politician's ideals. And also, money itself allows a candidate to continue moving forward with their prospective candidacy, especially within a primary. I mean, we see within the Democratic primary, if you have enough money, you can't be fully counted out. I mean, Pete Buttigieg. I'm not making any statement that he's being influenced by foreign leaders or anything. I like Pete Buttigieg.
Exactly what he's saying.
No, it isn't. But Pete Buttigieg, he is polling in about 5th place right now, below Biden, Sanders, Warren, and Harris. And Buttigieg has, oddly enough, in the last quarter, raised more money than almost all of them, if not all. He raised 11 million or something like that. Mm-hmm. So his ability to get funding is truly phenomenal. But that 11 million will be very useful in extending his campaign for quite a long time. It gives him resources to set up shops. It allows him to place ads in I guess on the internet or on TV if he wants to. He can.
I mean, a campaign is like any sort of business that might be bleeding money,
Yeah.
As long as you have the funds coming in to keep that business running,
absolutely,
you'll continue to be able to do it.
100%, and that's a huge deal. So that has to be thought of as well. And if a foreign actor wanted to funnel money into an individual's campaign, depending on how deep their pockets are, they might be able to support a candidate. Single-handedly, or as long as that candidate continues to want to run.
Indefinitely.
Yeah, indefinitely is the word I was looking for. Thank you, Jeremy.
See, we do compare notes.
Yeah.
I was like, well, indefinitely.
Indefinitely is the word. But yeah, so money is a huge way you can manipulate an election. And it also, the more money you have, the higher the likelihood that you're going to be elected overall. Yep. I mean, that correlation.
It's a sad fact, but it's true.
It's very true. I mean, that's why Steyer, I mean, he in certain places, due to the fact that he's running national ad campaigns, he's over 2% in a couple polls. He may make the next debate. And he was not in the first two. So that's, I mean, he's a billionaire. Right there, that can point to, the fact that if you have a shit ton of money, you can do quite a bit. But aside from that, I wanted to go into direct voting manipulation.
Okay.
That's another thing we have to be a little worried about.
And this is a area where a lot of people seem to think when you speak specifically on election interference.
Yeah.
They seem to think, it's literally like some guy coming in and hacking in on his computer into the election machine and changing the vote. No, I went to a vote for Obama.
Yeah. No, in all honesty, this is probably the most difficult way to... It is the most effective way. I will state that.
Sure.
It is literally changing the votes would be the most effective way to change the results of an election.
It's 100% guaranteed to work.
Exactly.
There's no risk of still the person.
But it is the most difficult to do with our current system. Right now, all of our voting machines are not on a network, so you cannot hack them online. You'd have to, a hacker would have to physically go to the voting site, the location where the machine is, to actually change that vote.
And you're speaking specifically on the machine that would scan the paper copies that are...
Exactly.
Not as far as the electronic voting machines, which they have had some issues with those.
The digital ones, I don't believe are on a network either, are they?
I'm not sure, but they do have other issues with them not having the paper trail after the fact.
Oh yeah.
So then you're
That's
unable
another
to,
thing.
if there's an error or some, just a natural error that could occur, there's no way of double checking it to verify.
That was another thing I was going to touch on is, and I was going to get to that later, but actually I kind of want to talk about it now. There are currently laws that have been introduced, or bills that have been introduced into Congress recently that would require all voting machines and all voting places to have a backup paper ballot if they are using digital machines. And unfortunately, not every state is using that, and there is some blockading in Congress. I won't say which part of Congress it's happening in, but it's happening. There's some blocking of that, and that is a problem. If there is, and this is incredibly unlikely, but if there is hacking of our voting machines, having a paper ballot backup is the only 100% method for us to truly get a real answer,
Sure.
and an accurate answer of who won in that election. And
it's a hard copy that verifies.
Exactly.
It cannot be changed.
Now, there are some states that still use some of these, the paper ballots or versions of that.
Are there any states? I'm not sure. Are there any states that still use the punch?
I'd hope not. I hope they were outlawed.
Yeah.
I'd hope. I don't know if
there was
were.
Another issue that came up.
Yeah, the hanging
Chad.
Yeah, that's rough.
Old school there.
Yeah. But I'd hope they wouldn't do that.
I'm not sure.
But that I did want to bring that out because it is possible for us to be hacked, and there are a couple questions that come into play, and I want to actually get your opinion on this, see what you think. Do you think it'd be a good idea to standardize the method in which we take votes?
I would. I feel like I would want to agree. I have to look into it more, but I think it seems like something that would be pretty agreeable. Having, I don't know if it's the best method. It seems like the best method right now, but just having a paper ballot kind of where you fill in and then scanning that paper ballot while having the backup.
Yes.
Seems like a pretty legit method that has been fairly effective. I'm not sure if that is the correct answer, but from where I am now, I would say that's probably the best method and what should be kind of the standardized method.
Okay. The reason I asked that is because...
Do you have a reason why I wouldn't?
Well, I have... there's some competing... In my head, I haven't been able to find a whole lot of...
Is there evidence that says otherwise as far as...
It's possible that there might be evidence otherwise, and that would be if there was a large-scale attack on multiple voting locations. A standardized method of voting would be easier to hack theoretically than an unstandardized one. So if it varied, if it varied state by state, and that would mean that an organization or government would have to coordinate quite a bit more. And
because you're dealing with different methods,
yes,
as far
as how votes are taken, and of course you'd have to additionally find out a way in which you would be able to get rid of the physical copies, which I think would be kind of difficult. You'd need kind of an attack on a location.
Pyromaniacs.
Yeah, no, I mean that would likely be one of the only ways, like burn it down or find a way to actually physically go in and steal all the ballots. But of course that would be quite blatant, and a hack is supposed to be stealthy, so
it would be rather suspicious if all of these polling places holding the paper ballots suddenly started going up in flames.
Yeah, it would be a little suspicious.
I wonder.
I honestly, I don't know what the right answer is. I tend to agree with you that the scanning method would probably be a good standard and as a base law, but also allow states to have additional security measures if they'd like to. That way, you could alleviate some of the arguments regarding states' rights as far as their ability to decide what they're going to do election-wise,
Sure.
As far as the vote's concerned. And there is that argument there, and I don't really ascribe to it that much because I honestly think national security is more important than the state's ability to choose which method of voting they're going to use.
Plus, I don't.
Some are better than others.
I don't know if this would be an argument, but you could say that even if the methods kind of were different, still having, they might be able to still direct an attack on a certain method, and that would still be a cause for concern and something that would need to be, dealt with, even if perhaps another method might be free and clear from that. Maybe you can't hack the whole election, but you'd still have
you could change one
an
state,
issue, and
possibly
by targeting key, swing type states, particularly in a national like presidential election, you wouldn't really need to
actually. And if it was a tight
target
race,
every single state, just as long as you can flip one or two states, you're good.
Hell, I mean, you could do that by going to only a few locations. And
especially very close, like your Floridas, your Pennsylvanias, your Carolinas, your Michigans, Nevada sometimes is, yeah. I mean,
maybe in the future Texas.
Sorry. You're pushing for that. That's like the third time you've mentioned it.
No, I really. The Texas thing, I find it truly fascinating because we're possibly in a state to where we're going to see a lot of flipping of certain states.
Well, I think it's fascinating for, you could argue, particularly our generation, where us growing up, say our ages, but Texas was always kind of synonymous with being a red state, and it's something you would never think of being. That was sort of their guarantee, while you have the guaranteed blue in California. And that's not necessarily something that's always been true. I mean, you sort of had that flip. Like California, Reagan won California. Ever since the policies of that era, California became a blue state.
And hell,
who was the politician that?
Oh, go ahead.
That said, I don't remember. It was maybe not a politician, but someone said after sort of the values that were in place after Reagan, that California would never again be.
Oh,
who was that? Was it? I believe it's a quote from some. I could be.
It might be. It sounds familiar, but I can't say as to who it is. But also, there are other aspects to look at. States have obviously flipped before, from being very strongly blue to strongly red.
But that's why I said specifically our generation, because we always had thought of, since we've been alive and the elections we've seen, as Texas being just a red state. And it's surprising to see that flip happen in your time.
Yes, I'm actually excited to see that because historically, there have been times in history. I think maybe the 70s, 60s, or 70s, when a lot of the South started to flip from blue to red.
Around the time where the kind of your parties sort of swapped in the ideas of
certain.
You had your Dixiecrats in the back, and they were
the Southern Democrat and things like that.
And then the Southern strategy came out of that.
So it's very interesting, and I also think there's a possibility that some of the northern states may stay flipped as well, like Ohio. I don't
know. I would argue Ohio.
Would you consider it still a swing state?
Most definitely. Yeah, I believe Ohio to be. Okay. I was more surprised, particularly with the last presidential election, seeing Pennsylvania flip.
Really?
Florida, Ohio, Carolina, those are kind of the ones you're pretty confident they'll really be on the cusp. But Pennsylvania, I was pretty surprised to see that. At least for me, I'm not sure. No backing evidence there, but personally, I thought that was pretty surprising to see Pennsylvania flip to being a red state.
Yeah, but anyway, let's sorry,
getting a little bit off track.
Yeah, we got sidetracked, but I'll be interested to see how that works. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the more abstract thing. It's inciting doubt in the integrity of elections as a whole. During the 2016 election, the intelligence community, along with the Senate Intelligence Committee, have come to the conclusion that there were attempts to interfere with our elections. That is proven. It's not an opinion. It's fact. Actually, the Senate Intelligence Committee has the report. They've already published it. It is redacted, but hell, it's still worth a read. And yeah, anyone who wants to go find it, please search for that. But that is a fact. In that, within that attempt to interfere with our election, there were disinformation campaigns. And I was reading something from the German Marshall Foundation, which is a think tank in the United States. It's called Hamilton 68. It's a service that tracks attempts to spread misinformation in any election, specifically ours. And they explained that the definition of misinformation itself is kind of being misconstrued. The attempts to interfere with our election, the individuals who did that, or the groups that did that, did not spread blatant lies. Instead, they utilized half-truths and things with like a kernel of truth in there, and then they framed it in such a way that it would make an individual seem like a monster, while without giving like context to the information or the action that candidate may have done. And it was utilized expertly because, I mean, if you're going to verify it, then you can type in like, did this actually happen? And then you can find, yes, this individual did actually say or do this thing.
It's a way, I would say it's a way you can pull not just people who would be completely ignorant as far as not even bother looking anything up, but you can pull a little more into someone who might actually take the extra step into
and do
throwing that into Google, getting a brief, a little confirmation through a headline or whatever, and then verifying, this is solid.
No, of course, if you actually dug a little bit, you'd find context around the action or the thing that the individual said, and it would provide a truth to the situation as a whole. But that hasn't been done by a lot of people, and that's something I'll get into in a little bit. But with these half truths and whatnot, they would target specific demographics. And this is where the integrity of the election and the voting suppression kind of commingle. So when Russia was spreading misinformation, they actually propped up certain accounts or started accounts on Facebook and on Twitter under different names and whatnot. And these accounts would target different people. They would target different demographics. So they would tell or frame an article one way and aim it at, let's say, Black Americans, and then they'd frame the same thing another way and aim it at white Americans or Hispanic Americans in an attempt to polarize the nation. I know this sounds very conspiracy heavy.
No, I mean I believe it. I believe I've read this myself. I can't verify it but as in an article or hearing about that and hearing about the propaganda that was spread.
It was targeted towards specific individuals, and I'm using the black and white polarization because
what about regions?
It's a good example.
Regions of the country
exactly.
or areas that might have a lot of strong opinions on certain issues.
Yeah, I was using the black and white polarization just as an example. I don't know if that particularly was done, so I do want to state that. But they were targeting specific regions, specific demographics of individuals, and spreading false information. And what that did is it created a situation where individuals were voting based or possibly voting, because this isn't exactly measurable. You can't measure.
There's no way to direct.
So it created the possibility that individuals may have been voting based on the stuff they read in these misinformed or this misinformation campaign by the Russian government, and that's gigantic. Again, I do want to state this isn't something that we can measure. You can't measure the change in vote based on a specific amount of ads.
It's not like you'd have exit polling data where you were you influenced by this ad on Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, if that would actually bring a lot more worries, because that apparently would mean that they knew about the misinformation campaign and waited till after they voted to tell them about it.
I guess you'd have to pose it more like, can you state the reasons why, and then see if from that they might derive.
That would be dangerous, actually, as well.
What, as far as
asking why someone voted for someone else? Because if you do that, that could get really biased and cause some issues there. Especially as far as the right to privacy goes.
Sure, but I could say maybe not officially polling data, but you'll see interviews. From your news, like as far as who did you vote for? What was your reasons for voting for Trump or Hillary or whatever?
Yeah, in my head, I was thinking like a government agent just
no.
Why did you vote for this person?
Yeah,
that would be really.
Why did you not vote for Trump?
Yeah, exactly. That would be very rough. Oh shit. Oh, that's terrifying. Anyway,
don't you know Obama's the devil?
Yeah. But yeah, after this happened and once more information got out, there was a huge wave of panic and kind of discontentment within American society that basically the Russian government interfered in our elections may have changed who the president became or the how the vote turned out. And they feel like, elections don't mean shit.
Yeah. Well, especially...
which could suppress votes.
Especially because, we've talked about this before, but I personally believe there's a large... I don't know if I say majority, but there's a large portion of Americans who aren't really going to put any effort into really exploring who they might be voting for. They might just browse your Facebooks, your Twitters, your whatevers,
and just on headlines.
Yes, just see these kind of ads that their crazy uncle posted, and then next thing they know, they think whatever conspiracy about Hillary and Pizzagate or whatnot, or this and that, and they're suddenly voting for Trump, Hillary, whomever based on
whatever
a few things their friends shared on Facebook or some headline they saw on Twitter or whatever, because they don't bother to, but they still go out and vote. They they remember that, they call that back in their mind. They're like, "Ooh, boy, I gotta vote for whomever."
Yeah, actually, I wanted to ask you this: do you think that there is a disparity between the idea that that citizens may have to feel to where they feel like it is a civic duty to vote and they vote, and the individuals who actually utilize their knowledge or their research and critical thinking skills when they go vote? I think there's a disparity or
what do you mean as far as
how many of the people do you think that feel like it's their civic duty to vote actually do their homework? Like what portion?
I guess that's kind of what I was getting at.
I want to know what percentage.
What percent? I don't want to throw out a percentage because that'd be totally off. But I would say
Because I do tend to agree with you.
Maybe only 20 to 30% are actually going to do their research and look into at least a preliminary, cursory kind of overview of a candidate they might be voting for. And you have another good, as far as people who vote, another good 60 to 70% that are just going to.
Yeah. And these are of the people that actually
based on their
vote
civic
in
duty.
the first place.
And maybe not even their civic duty, but just they might see, like we said, these kind of propaganda on Facebook or social media, and they feel like because they see something like this, it's such a huge threat or it's such a concern because, Hillary's going to go to nuclear war or whatever, that they have to jump in and prevent this from happening, or Obama's going to take the Bible away, or whatever. So they feel a strong need, kind of. And it's not even necessarily maybe to their fault if they see these kind of things on social media and whatnot, and they think these things they hold that are important to them, these values they hold, are going to be under attack due to a certain president, mostly a president, but maybe other senators,
other elected official.
Yeah.
I mean, if anyone is interested in state politics, that'd be. I'd like to meet that person. Because
sure there's a niche group.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in some state politics, but I'm not nearly as informed. Even of, I'd say, even of the individuals who are well informed about government as a whole, very few of them know much about state politics or local municipal.
Well, even local, I think comes more down to sort of the.
Who's your friend?
Yeah, like I heard
speculation.
This guy who's up for city council or whatever is, I don't know.
He was a bad principal at the school.
I was gonna make some sketchy comments.
Anyway,
but, I'm trying to think of something that's not too inflammatory to say. Like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Anyways,
no.
We're getting off topic.
But no, I mean that could be a thing in local politics. But no.
Yeah. So, but to answer your question fully, I would say it's kind of,
a smaller percentage. Yeah. I tend to agree with you.
And then even from that larger percentage, I would say maybe half of that is people just feeling like they need to fulfill their civic duty. And less than that anymore. And then the other percentage is kind of like based on fear mongering or whatever they might hold,
or some sort of propaganda.
The propaganda that's the fear mongering from the propaganda.
Yeah,
to make them go and vote against a certain politician.
And actually, that would so I want to get into the next area, which is responses and things that we can do to protect ourselves a little more. And one of those I thought would have been. There's a couple ideas of out there about providing more knowledge on a factual basis to potential voters. So, do you think within our current society that there could be a method in which we could give nonpartisan information, just voting records, stuff like that, out to individuals without, I guess, inciting some cries of, this is partisanship, or this is an attempt to influence how I think, and who would be in charge of that?
What do you mean by as far as voting records?
So actually there are a couple websites.
Like members of Congress?
Members of Congress, if they
my mind went somewhere else entirely when you said voting records. I was thinking like citizens, how they voted. I was like, whoa, where are you going here?
That's unacceptable.
That's some huge government oversight.
Yeah, no. But this could
get back to that. Who'd you vote for?
They have a CIA or FBI agent outside.
Like just man in a black suit. I'm a member of a nonpartisan group. I'm just looking to ask who you voted for.
It's for a record. It's for your personal voting record. Anyway.
It's like a criminal sentence. He voted for Trump twice.
No, but no, I honestly, I don't think that I'm not sure if this would be too much government oversight in what I'm actually saying either. Because if you created a nonpartisan agency that was meant to cover specific topics, so like let's say you have positions on the economy, abortion, civil rights, you got transportation, drugs, and then in each of those there'd be a list of important votes that pertain to that issue and how that individual voted on.
And then you're seeing the candidates that voted yay or nay towards.
There are websites that actually do this. On theissues.org and
every time he's dropping these names of these websites like he's getting paid, he's getting money under the table from these nonprofits.
I just want people to get informed. Please get informed. Look up the platform.
That's what he wants you to believe. Don't believe him.
Look up the actual platforms of these candidates, and there are other sites as well. I can't remember some of the names of them. Sure. I think All Sides is another one that has some information. I found that kind of difficult to navigate myself, but if anyone is more computer savvy than I am, then they are probably...
It might not be you, it might just be the website's poorly optimized or
a
bad layout.
It's possible. I didn't want to lay the blame on the website.
Lay the blame on them.
Yeah, it's their fault, not mine. Yeah, this is a good misinformation.
I mean, is it like a nonprofit?
I think it is, yeah.
Well, if they don't got any money to do that, they've got like a rudimentary website design. Yeah.
But no,
some 2001 Earthlink.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. But go to these websites, because a lot of times, even if you go to a politician's own website,
sure,
it has a lot of propaganda, and they spin everything to kind of...
Well, yeah, it's gonna...
Yeah, they're promoting
place
themselves.
them in a positive light. They're not gonna say...
Yeah, so what you want is...
I'm a prominent, Democratic candidate, but I voted against all these...
Yeah, exactly.
Bills to help against climate change or something.
You wanna, if you want to get really informed, look up the platforms of these individuals. But my idea, I don't know if there could be a government agency that would truly be able to nonpartisanly give out information. Like,
is there anything that wouldn't allow that?
I don't know. Well, the thing is, I mean, if you have a government agency doing this, would they? What is the possibility that a partisan individual or an individual with their own agenda comes in and tries to skew data in a certain way by how they frame questions?
I've got the solution.
Okay.
You got a guy who sits and watches C-SPAN all day, and he just takes a tally.
Actually, okay. So I had
pay a minimum wage. He sits there and watches C-SPAN on his computer all day. It just tallies up.
I had an AP US history teacher that loved C-SPAN, or I think it was US history. Anyway, no.
I don't know if you can love or dislike C-SPAN. I think it's kind of just a neutral entity that exists.
It is very neutral. It shows what is actually happening, which is kind of interesting.
That's all it is.
But he watched a lot of C-SPAN and stuff.
Yeah, so did I growing up.
Yeah. yeah. But no, I think if not an agency, then an independent foundation or an independent organization that would be able to give out these information either via pamphlets or however you want to spread it. But it'd have to become approved by someone in Congress or the Senate or somewhere saying that it is in fact nonpartisan. Because you'd probably want to put that or have that available somewhere near the election location, ideally.
Yeah, and you'd have to make that very crystal clear, because anything that's going to be a pamphlet or that type of thing, or a website or anything of the sort, people are automatically going to assume it may be slanted towards one candidate. Exactly. People are unsure, especially if it's actually, like you said, at a polling center. With a pamphlet, people are, you go to polling centers, all you see out in front is your various candidates and their supporters coming there with their whatever propaganda against, not necessarily propaganda, but slander pieces against the other candidate or other ones,
and
showing all the great things they've done.
In all honesty, I would just like the electorate, the individuals who actually are voting, because hooray for that, just in the first place, because they're, not what is the percentage of individuals that have voted in the last in the 2018?
I think it was around 40-some%.
Yeah, it varies between 40 to 60ish. I think during certain elections. Yeah, Jeremy, you look that up to get a better idea. I know in the 2018 election it's going to be a lot less because it's a non-presidential election year. But the 2016 probably had a higher percentage. But what did we get?
Oh, I was off. It was over 58%.
58% in 2016
yes.
or 18?
In 2016.
2016. Okay, probably a lot less in 2018, in all honesty.
Off years are always less.
Yeah, it's significantly less.
Record numbers. 47%.
47. Yeah. Okay.
But apparently that was a 50-year high.
That's good.
So for an off year,
that's really depressing.
That tells you the difference when it's
Yeah, that's really sad.
Over 10% less, but it's a 50-year high.
Yeah, that's really bad. But no, of the people, if you actually vote, yay for you. But I'd like to take it a step further and actually have people a little more informed on actual issues. And
I don't even know if I'm going to give them the credit. Don't say yay for you if you voted, if you're completely ignorant of why you voted. At the very least, I hope, I hate to say, based on propaganda, but even if they might have a strong dislike for another candidate based on whatever issue that's a gun control or something, they believe Obama or someone's going to take away their guns, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
If it's on misinformation, if it's on propaganda, it's a little weird, but if they're voting on that, at the very least, it was a reason. But if you're just going there purely based on ignorance and kind of just winging it, that seems... I wouldn't even give them a yay there. if you're going in there and flipping a coin...
if I give them a cookie, then maybe they'll take the milk. Come on.
No.
Come on.
They get scraps. Until they do the right job.
Until they do it correctly. Now, what do you think about? So you're probably against a possible penalty on or like Australia has.
Sure.
For
yeah, it's
for not forced voting, but like encourage or actually have some sort of penalty, a small penalty that says if you don't vote, then you get fined $15 or whatever.
I think there are perhaps better steps to take first before having something like a penalty,
like increasing knowledge of
increasing knowledge, as well as like perhaps making it a kind of a federal holiday, doing something of that sort. Well, there's not necessarily a penalty, but you're getting a paid holiday from your work to go out and vote. Or maybe some people are just going to screw around and stay at home, but they get the day off.
That at all. I truly love that.
Yeah, it's more of a positive approach, so people are going into it with a little more of a positive outlook, and they're not getting penalized for doing something they awesome. Wouldn't normally do. So I think, having a sort of a paid federal holiday it helps with like voter suppression, just through not necessarily through outside powers, but people simply not being able to get off their job or having some sort of very strict, quota or job schedule they have to meet, so they're unable to get to the
Armstrong 2032.
No, absolutely not.
No, but I really like that. That's a fantastic idea. I support that 100%. So aside from that, then there are other responses that we could have, or other ways to protect ourselves. And the first thing that I could actually come up with, or that I found through research as well, is the policies that we adopt, stating what we will do if we find evidence of election interference by a foreign government or organization. We haven't done that in a very blatant, clear way.
Well, that's why it's been so murky as of lately with the past election interference, and where it seems like it should be blatant, but there's this kind of hazy gray area where
no, I feel like there should be. No
one really knows.
If you find so, in this is my opinion, I think that the United States should adopt a policy that basically says if they find evidence of a misinformation campaign or any other method acted to interfere with our election, that X, Y, and Z will happen to that other country. So if Russia tries in 2020 to interfere with our elections, there's a couple of things we could do. I personally like the option of cyber attacks until they come out with a public apology. Literally, no, like fucking we have the ability to cripple their at least.
This goes back into our previous show. What show was that?
On the extent of force.
Using force to kind of. I don't remember exactly what the topic was, but using force to influence.
This was the China thing when we're talking about socially liberalizing China. What?
That was our first episode. Actually,
that was the first episode we talked. Damn, man. Yeah, full circle.
That was ages ago.
Yeah. No, but yeah, we spoke then on possibly utilizing some sort of force. You don't want a kinetic act because you don't want to put boots on the ground because that's a form of escalation. And it's very likely that intense cyber attacks is definitely an escalation as well.
Sure.
But
I mean, taking the necessary steps to avoid an all-out war in that sense is probably best, no matter what your reason is.
Oh yeah, but if you use a kinetic attack especially, but for a cyber attack, you find their most populous city or their center or their capital, and then you launch a cyber attack on their power grid. Try to make things offline and do it at random times. Try to minimize casualties in hospitals because that would be a bad thing. That's actually killing people. But no, make life hell for that city, and I mean that should have some impact. You probably won't get a public apology. I was being a little facetious there, but
what's your opinion on? I wouldn't agree with this personally, but what's your opinion on like a tit for tat retaliation?
I mean, I personally don't like it. It seems dirty, and of course there's all the stuff about sinking down to someone else's
I wouldn't
level.
agree with it either.
But
although I must say, without getting too conspiratorial, I mean, Western powers have been known to influence, particularly countries of lesser standing in the world's.
Yeah, man, it's not election interference. It's propping up dictators.
Okay, I'm not going to go that far, but sure.
Well, we have.
I mean, that is true. I'm not saying that's not true. I guess I was in recent times, kind of thinking of how they might. We won't go too far.
Yeah. Anyway. But no, cyber attacks would be one method. Economic sanctions. There's also a way to just shut down any diplomatic relations. It'd be kind of hard to do to Russia, I think, because if you shut down diplomatic relations too much, there could be some sort of tension build up, and then you could get to a Cold War. So I think physically actually responding to it, not in a physical sense, but actively responding to it through cyber attacks or economic sanctions would probably be the best way to do it. Now, as far as the tit for tat thing goes, there is an event where I would be a little more okay with it. If the United States blatantly said, if you mess with us, we will mess with you, and that is their policy, and they've broadcasted it to the world, then everyone has been forewarned. So at that point, I mean, it's still
I feel
seems to their level.
Yeah, that could kind of be
But
end up in a sort of a perpetual cycle
oh, absolutely. Well, actually,
where no one even knows what's happening anymore because there's so much propaganda. And
well, it's that's definitely possible.
You'll have the United States controlling the Russian elections and the Russians controlling the United
We're gonna
States.
switch.
Everyone's just gonna swap.
Well, I mean, that depends. I mean,
Be like, who's Russia bringing in to run for president this year?
I'll state that I agree with you that could happen, but that would actually depend on the chain of events, because if you have a governmental structure like Russia, where their elections are they interfere in their own elections, the United States would probably be counterbalancing that, and then there could be a new individual coming to power, which could prop up a new version of democratic integrity.
America's gonna carpet bomb democracy down onto them.
Yeah. We're gonna force it down their throats. But no, I mean,
it's democracy, and you're gonna really love
it. But no, that's a possibility as well. I don't think. I think somewhere in between the worst case scenario and best case scenario is likely if we were to do tit for tat, and I don't want to, and so I'm not going to advocate for that.
Yeah,
I personally think cyber attacks are the best way to go.
Okay.
Especially if you're also, you'd have to be very blatant about why you're committing the attack, because there are methods of committing a cyber attack where you could do it in a more stealthy way, to where the government wouldn't know it was you exactly. But that would be another situation entirely. So that government would have to know that it's you attacking them, which could also cause some escalation. Now, I actually had...
well, in that case, it also may... touching on the escalation, it may be considered like a form of you could argue even warfare, in the sense of a cyber attack. I mean,
it is a cyber attack.
Yeah. So, but I guess warfare in the traditional sense, where they could see that as a form of escalation, and from there,
Yeah. Well, I mean, even a cyber attack could result in
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Casualties.
Well, that's why.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I'd agree with that 100%. So I don't know much about cyber attacks because I'm not good with computers. And
that's why he doesn't run the show.
Studied this way.
That's why he doesn't run the show.
Yeah, I do not do any.
That's why this janky setup is coming from my end.
Yeah, I do nothing technical here. Research. I'm research heavy. But no. Yeah, I'd assume if you were to commit some sort of cyber attack, you'd have to do it in a way where it wouldn't target certain areas like hospitals, things like that, where people could be hospice care facilities, things like that need that to support the lives of people. But I wanted to ask you about this. What do you think about creating a red line? So saying, if y'all do this, and like if you cross this line, then we will attack or we will respond. I don't want to...
Kind of like, this is our barrier as far as...
Yeah.
This is where the bar's set.
Mm-hmm.
You cross over it, kind of thinking of like punishing a child.
Yeah.
Like, you move from this spot.
Yeah, if you do this one more time...
Punishment will occur.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, because I think it could create a situation where something may occur where you would almost be forced to retaliate when you wouldn't want to. And you might find yourself in a situation where either you do not want to retaliate, so you don't, and then you'll end up that kind of where the bar is set won't really matter. It'll be just sort of a joke at that point.
Okay.
Or you'll be forced to, and then from that, the resulting consequences.
I was thinking of a different way, where basically...
Are you in favor of that kind of thing?
No. I didn't want to skew you one way or the other,
sure.
But I'm not. For this reason, in my opinion, there's the possibility that a country sees kind of the bar or the red line, and they go close to it, and mess with us only a little bit, but not enough to really meet that threshold of we're going to attack you now, and that I think that those methods actually have been used in other areas of politics, though I don't have any citations for that.
Okay.
But I think that's a possibility. The reason I asked is because I was reading an article from the Center for Foreign Relations, and they suggested that we establish a clear red line stating that if you go here, if you do this, then we will respond. Now there is a possibility if you make that threshold super low, it could possibly work, but then there's the possibility where politically it wouldn't be a smart idea, because there are some tensions there. There are other diplomatic relations that you have to think about. What were they effective in actually doing in actually trying to interfere? So there are some questions around that I had, and I don't think it's a great idea personally.
I agree.
Yeah. Other things that we could do to improve our defenses, I found online and through research. And this was from the Center for Foreign Relations again. Same article. They suggested creating a whole new agency that is focused on preventing cyber attacks or spreading of misinformation, and letting the public know of misinformation campaigns, so that.
What does it fall under currently?
Right now, we actually have a sub-agency called the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which is very fucking redundant.
Yeah,
Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. CISA.
It's like that University of Maryland University College.
Exactly. It's very weird. It was created in 2018.
And this is a sub-agency of
the Department of Homeland Security.
Okay, sure.
Oddly enough, the United Kingdom actually created an agency in 2016 that was focused around interference in their elections.
They saw the writing on the wall.
Yeah. I mean, it's very possible that Russia focused more on the United Kingdom before it focused on the United States. I can't say that for sure, but it's possible. And I don't know, what do you think about creating a whole new agency?
I'm not sure. I can't say. I'd have to look into it more. I mean, it seems like a good idea on the surface, especially with it becoming such a major issue at this time, and the issues we've had with it, and how it is, like we said, kind of falls into that gray area where no one really knows what to do. So it seems like having an agency to cover that specifically and have people working towards really securing our democratic process would be a good thing, but I'd have to see, I guess, the arguments against it.
Yeah.
I'm sure people don't want,
Well, I've come up with a couple possible counter arguments.
What would your review? Let me see.
Well, I mean, one of them would be the fact that it would be another bureaucracy.
Well, that's what I was going to get to. Yeah,
there are individuals that feel like there are too many bureaucracies.
They don't want the continued expansion of kind of
of bureaucratic
more
power.
Layers of
and that could create a lot more red tape. Which is a possibility. It could also slow down any potential action made by the agency, because they have to go through some sort of lengthy approval process. Whereas if they're part of the Department of Homeland Security, it's probably not as difficult. I'm not sure how that works. It depends. If they're their own agency, then there's probably another set of rules and guidelines that have to be created.
When you say, can you argue it's more direct as opposed to having to go step by step through?
You could. It depends on how it's structured. Now, if the head of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency is
to abbreviate that.
Yeah, if the head of that agency is high up and
cyber police.
Yeah, or CISA, I think would be a good CISA.
No, cyber police. That's
Cyber. Okay, we're calling it cyber police.
cyber cops.
No, if cyber cops could, if the head of that agency didn't or had to go to another agency or something a little larger umbrella agency within the DHS, and then it had to keep going up, I could see that argument. But if they reported directly to the head of the Department of Homeland Security, it's probably not as bad. I don't know. Or probably not as rough. If you create a whole new agency, then you have to create a whole new set of guidelines that agency has to work with, and then how that agency is going to cooperate with other agencies. And what is the scope of this new agency's power in the national security
Sure.
scope, as opposed to Department of Homeland Security or the NSA even.
Well, yeah. Then how would they kind of interact?
Yeah, because I mean,
The communication chains between the two, because there's going to be crossover between those.
And that's another thing I have. Other than red tape, there's the interagency communication that could be a problem as well, because we already see that there already is interagency flaws in communication between the FBI, the CIA,
Sure.
The NSA, and other investigative or security type.
Because there are going to be things that come up where they're going to be the other agency may feel that they're kind of crossing their boundaries as far as
absolutely
moving into their own territory.
And then the sharing of information would be rough too.
That's true as well.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly. I don't have the answer for whether or not it should be its own agency, but I thought it would be interesting to bring up.
Sure.
And of course, I mean, we have Congress has acted a little bit on this. I don't want to make it seem like we're super pessimistic that we're getting hacked left and right and Congress is doing nothing, which, I mean, for the most part that may be, but there's some action going on.
We just got hacked by Congress. That's why he's having to bring this up.
Congress has appropriated $400 million for election security. I think that was last year.
Okay.
And that was to provide states with the ability to upgrade some of their voting machines if they wanted to, but they didn't have their stipulations on the upgrades weren't exactly strict, so I'm a little skeptical of that. But there's also funding for helping each state come up with ways to protect themselves.
Okay.
I don't know if it's enough, but it's something. Now, I also heard this in the same article, and they suggested this, and I want to get your opinion on this. So, what do you think about the possibility of Congress working alongside tech executives, like the heads of Twitter and Facebook? You know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
And there was a suggestion of providing more information to these tech executives about the spread of their of what's happening, about the misinformation campaigns, and giving them the ability to audit and kind of work to fight this via social media.
I think there's some obvious issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when
we run into in talking about that. Issues that already are present in people on both sides.
Oh yeah.
Are you for and against them?
No, and I need to state, like, I usually I am all for the Center for Foreign Relations. They're a pretty good think tank, and these are all options that they suggested. I don't know if they were exactly promoting this. They might have been.
Sure. I mean, it could still be suggestions that they perhaps want to see people look into more or further explore.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that would be a really shitty idea.
Yeah,
I gotta be blatant about that. That would not be a good idea. First off, it blurs the lines between corporations, companies, and the government, which I never think is a good idea. That's not smart. Because that enables the possibility of corporations influencing government in a way that I'm not comfortable with, especially around elections. That's not cool.
Because companies are going to be self-interested. They're going to, do whatever is the most beneficial for them in that situation.
Additionally, I don't think providing other new information about what might be happening, especially anything that might be classified for intelligence eyes only kind of thing. I don't think providing that to tech executives, even if it is in a noble pursuit to stop election interference, I don't think that's a smart idea, because giving them that information,
you could almost say that's holding them in kind of a higher standard than the average citizen. They're almost placed on this pedestal as being sort of privy to having all this
information,
top secret kind of information, because they own a sort of social media
or
whatever.
I didn't like this at all, but I wanted to bring it out there because and there is an idealistic motive behind this that should be acknowledged. I mean, it is an attempt to foster some sort of cooperation between the government and the tech executives, who people could argue that these tech executives may have some level of responsibility in these misinformation campaigns, because it is their site. But
I always have to think of it in the forms of, how would it be beneficial to them? Like, are they going to be getting enough out of this to make it worthwhile? And if not, they're going to try to. I don't want to give them. I don't want to give them any credit, and thinking that would have some sort of noble approach and feel like they need to protect our democratic systems. They're looking out for themselves.
Yeah, that's my primary complaint about that idea. Is basically companies literally are not in it for noble goals most of the time.
Unless it's somehow financially beneficial or
the primary goal of a company is to
effective
make money
for their company.
If your profits line up with something noble, all the better. And companies do that all the time, try to figure that out. But money is the bottom line, and we no doubt about that. Just accept that's the way companies are. If you have a problem with it, then change the system. Please change the system. Please change.
He's advocating for communism over here.
No. I just I ascribe to the position that I like the idea of capitalism as long as there are guardrails. Rules and regulations are good for us.
They're necessary.
Yes, because it prevents exploitation. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked.
And it deals with market failures and other areas where capitalism alone isn't going to
cut it.
Yeah.
But that's quite a bit. That's basically all I had.
That's fine, because we're getting late here and we haven't even touched on other questions.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Luckily, I only have. We're almost at a minute 20 or an hour 20.
Shoot. Damn. Sorry.
Luckily, I only have a couple questions here.
Okay, cool.
So, and we got a little bit sidetracked. So.
Yeah.
Well, first, I wanted to. This will be a pretty easy one, but how do you think the past election interference will kind of affect the upcoming 2020 election?
Actually,
if any.
Oddly enough, I was talking about voter suppression, but if we look at 2018's turnout, it was like we saw, it was the highest yield
50 years.
In 50 years. With that knowledge, I'm going to say that it's very likely that the polarization that the misinformation campaigns and the attempts at interference caused will actually motivate more individuals to vote, whether you're voting for one side or another. Just because, in all honesty, and I've been very good at saying this because I don't want to get into politics, or I don't want to get into the political debate around this.
Sure.
I'd like to go more with the policy side.
A nonpartisan approach.
Yeah, I didn't want to state who the intelligence committee and the intelligence community found Russia trying to help, because there is a definitive answer. If you want that definitive answer, find it yourself. The intelligence committee.
This whole show was actually a trick to get you to go do some research.
No, I mean, do your own damn research. Find out the truth.
We just say that so we don't have to do anything.
But no,
just spread lies.
Well, I showed them where I stated where they could find it. But no, there are individuals who believe that there was that accept that there was interference, but they think it was a certain candidate rather than another candidate, and that's happening on both sides. Now, with that information or misinformation out there, that causes polarization, and it might force people to vote or come out to vote more because they want to kind of negate some of the opposition. So,
well, that would be touching directly on voter suppression, but as far as more the propaganda and the spread of misinformation, you think that'll have any rollover from the past couple of elections? Even if there isn't any direct new, let's say, propaganda.
Well, that's
sort
the
of
thing. I think there will be
lingering remnants of.
But yes, there will absolutely be lingering remnants because we're.
Well, that's why I posed that question specifically. Yeah. I'm more so talking about the effect that the 2016 might have had.
Yeah, I think that the election interference campaign that Russia used in the 2016 election will still affect us in the 2020 election.
Fair enough.
And the reason behind that is simple. We're still talking about this shit today.
There you go.
Yeah.
Because this show.
Mm-hmm. This show is the only reason why why it will have an effect. No.
Speaking on interference in particular, what do you believe is kind of the most effective for perhaps foreign domestic powers to use kind of moving forward?
Misinformation. All other forms of election interference will either be more difficult or will be less effective.
It's not effective, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Of course, that's not to say if you are a foreign government and you can somehow infiltrate a country and physically change the votes, hell, do that. But I really doubt that they'll be able to effectively using that method.
Fair enough. And I also wanted to mention, I was just curious if you had read any into it, but the recent protests in Russia.
No, I didn't hear much about this at all.
Did you hear about them at all? Yeah, there's recent protests this past week.
That's cool.
Again, specifically the election, I don't know what you'd call it, but kind of the rigged elections and the process in general.
Huh.
We won't have to go into it if you haven't looked into it, but I would, suggest checking it out.
I'm super excited,
especially
about
in
this.
Russia. It's pretty surprising.
Yeah. So is it against Putin?
I believe so. Yeah, and just the system in general, not necessarily Putin, but how they don't really have a democratic system or the issues that exist within the Russian system right now.
I will look this up. This is cool. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know. I can't.
No, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine. I was just curious if you had, since it kind of
I
somewhat relates.
No, I the only thing I had known was that there was I knew there was Russia was having some issues as far as confidence in their electorate, but I didn't know that
there are protests resulting from that.
Yeah, I didn't know that
pretty major protests. Yeah,
that makes me happy. Okay, sorry.
All right, well, let's just go
social
through
liberalization, man. All right,
we should have said it was for Russia, not China.
Yeah, exactly.
A few of these comments here. What's a good source to look up the candidates? I think you already touched on that.
Yes. All sides, I think that's a .org or ontheissues.org. Now, once you go to these sites, it usually requires you to know at least the politician's name. Now, if you're trying to go as far down as local politicians. They may not have them. They may also not have some state politicians platforms. But if you're just looking for federal politicians that have kind of been in the game for at least one term, then you can get some really good information about that.
And that would be not even just for the candidates, but any sort of politician that may or may not be running.
Oh, absolutely. Okay. If you want to learn a little more. And actually, when I was talking about a independent organization basically stating out voting records based on certain issues, that's how those websites are formatted. So they actually have headers: abortion, the economy, workers' rights, civil rights, and then different voting stances that they've taken and statements that they've made based on that. So it's kind of cool.
Fair enough. All right. Social media is a lie.
Yeah.
Spill the tea, Jeremy. I'm here for the comments. What? It was just, I didn't, it was a little edgy. I didn't want to throw it out there. I like the paid holiday idea. And a government interfering in another government election is going to favor a candidate who is friendly towards the interfering government. It would be a self-centering system.
Actually, yes. Any foreign government will try to, if they're utilizing election interference, they will, in fact, support their own agenda, obviously. But there are many different ways they could do that. You'd have to really analyze the politician, because you'd have to analyze them on their platform as well as on their character, and finally on the possibility of manipulation of the individual themselves. So first off, are there ways in which you could blackmail that individual or manipulate that individual or someone close to them to get that person to do what you would like them to do? Second thing, is their basic platform in the first place more
favorable
towards you or towards your side? And lastly, if you can analyze a person's character and get someone who'd be more likely to make a deal or make something shady.
Make a really good deal. The best deal.
Yes. Exactly. Then that might be helpful as well. So yes, that is true. I like
All
that.
right. Fair enough.
Who made the last comment?
That was Peter.
Nice. I like that. Yeah.
All right. I think that's about it. We're about out of time, so that was perfect as far as closing it up there.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you wanted to say?
Thank you all for watching.
Anything else related to the topic specifically?
No. My brain is fried now.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go put myself in the charging port and make sure I'm ready to go.
He's an AI we use.
I am. I'm a robot. I'm
just
a robot.
Pump through this.
Yeah. I'm turned on Wednesdays and Sundays, and then I go back to my docking station.
Someone might take that the wrong way.
But yeah, no, nothing else to say over here.
I did want to mention, I believe I mentioned this on air, right? The Tim Ryan dropout.
Yes, you didn't mention it on here. But
I didn't mention it on air.
Oh, yeah, you did actually.
Yeah, on the Wednesday show, right?
Yes, that made me so happy.
Called it.
I am
We are like 3 for 3 now.
Yeah, our predictions of the.
You want 100% accurate results? Tune in on Wednesday.
Exactly. We're doing pretty damn well. I'm very happy about that. Actually, in a couple weeks, we probably should, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, we'll touch on the fall debate and see who's gonna get in. I'm really excited about that one. Hopefully, it will still be a 2-night event, but there will be fewer candidates each night. That's my goal. That's my hope.
I doubt that's gonna happen, but
let me dream, Jeremy.
Maybe we'll get a full 2 hours.
Oh, that's
or
possible.
no, what was it? It
that
was
was
2.5.
Yeah,
might be a 3 hour.
Damn.
We'll see. All right. So I think that's about it for today.
Yeah. Thank y'all for watching us, and I'm
course,
Dylan.
Well, let's get the.
Oh damn!
Man, you're rushing it, man.
I'm rushing it. I'm rushing it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
That was bad. Tips and donations, of course. Link is in the description.
Mm-hmm.
Like and subscribe if you have not already.
Yes.
Follow us on Twitter.
At Pluralist Method. Said that in unison. That was good.
Yeah. And we'll be posting actually a picture of our setup.
Yes.
After the fact.
We've got this. Y'all might like this.
What that looks like.
Yeah,
Don't expect anything impressive.
Oh, it's not too impressive, but it's a nice little setup. I like it.
All right. So yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you all for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you. As I stated before, I'm Dylan.
I'm Jeremy.
And see you later.
Thanks for watching.